All right. Well, without further ado, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my Saturday morning, 3 a.m., than to talk about a movie I just watched called Biosphere. Before I get into that, and there's going to be spoilers too with Biosphere. So if you are very adverse to that, or you haven't seen Biosphere and you do not want everything ruined, just skip that bit. But before you do, how are you? How's everything? Everything good? Everything great? Can you get on with the episode, Adam? I will. All right? I care about you guys. I was debating whether or not to talk about the scariest movie I've ever watched. And I think I want to do an episode just on scary movies, just, by itself and whatnot, and the different kinds of scary. Because I've always been fascinated by horror and like every bit of subgenres that are in horror and stuff and tropes and whatnot. And I feel like that would be like a whole episode I can get into on all that. But one thing I do want to talk about is the Scariest, because I watched a trailer on Insidious, the Red Door. And it just, well, first off, I don't know. Like, I might be a hater. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to hit as well as the first Insidious film, but I will definitely watch it because I love horror. And I definitely like the last Insidious, I think. It was like, The Last Key or something? The Last Key. Yeah. See? I was right. So, the scariest movie I've ever watched, and this is what got me thinking about it too, is Insidious and watching the trailer, because I fairly recently watched this film, and I didn't know how to approach this subject other than like referring to a very good film, a great video that I watched. A video by Renegade Film Theory made a video about a year ago. Yeah, it's a year ago. Called The Scariest Movie Ever Made. And before I watched this video, I heard about this film from a friend of mine who I work with. And he told me that like this film is like very, very dark, like very bleak and like pretty terrifying. And it's not terrifying in the way that you would think as like jump scares and whatnot. It's just terrifying just by the environment alone. And I was like, okay, it's an interesting thing. And it's a film called Threads, which came out in 1984. And this film, I believe, was a BBC flick. Yeah, which is crazy, because if anybody have seen Threads, and anybody who knows BBC, I mean, they're like the British broadcast whatever channel, right? Column, whatever, doesn't matter. They produced this film. And what's crazy about this film is that the film is about so it takes place in this like tiny city in England, I want to say, Great Britain, right? And I think so it does this like little countdown thing, and it's for like this like there's a war happening, I think in like it was like the Soviet troops moving into occupied Afghanistan, and they were just dropping bombs left and fucking right, until they essentially fought back. But before it gets to that point, you see all of the political like undoing in the background. Meanwhile, we see profiles of different families and a couple who wants to start a family, and people just living normal lives. And what they don't see is like all of this like crazy political shit happening in the background. These government officials just basically like not really pay any mind to any of like like different levels of threat that is actually imminent that's going to happen in their own country. And it sort of was just like disregarded. Now, would that really happen? I don't know, because I think like, it's always in the best interest to just keep the public like just calm and sane. But also at the same time, it's stupid because if it's imminent, like you might as well take protection and cover and whatnot. And it was already too late. And once it was too late, a huge nuclear explosion just erupted the entire city. Like just basically decimated it. It was like the central point of like the bomb where it dropped was literally in the city. And it didn't kill everybody, but it certainly fucking hurt a lot. That comes later in the film, which just becomes like just filled with dread almost immediately, because the film doesn't necessarily like, and I guess it's perfect timing for Oppenheimer, right? So the film doesn't really talk about the depiction of like the nuclear explosion as much as we talk about 10 years after. So you see everything in between up until 10 years later, post-explosion. And it is, yeah, I mean, it's dreadful. Like, it's just, it's horrific because it feels too real. Sort of like in the vein of how like true crime documentaries are. And if you watch enough of them, you're just like, oh, God, Jesus. If it feels heavier than it actually should be. It's kind of the same shit with Threads. But the cool thing about Threads is that I think, well, it's not cool, right? But I do think the interesting thing about Threads, though, is that they show the depiction of the calamity afterwards of what a nuclear explosion looks like. And I did read some of it that it was just like part of it was like, I don't know if it was inspired, but it was definitely taken information from like other atomic bombs that just completely ruined cities and stuff, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, all those horrible tragedies. And it's so weird how you don't really see a lot of those films, primarily because they are fucking depressing. Like, you don't feel good after watching this movie. Like, you sort of just kind of want to take a walk, and just kind of like take in the fresh air and whatnot, and just like, not feel like an overwhelming sense of dread. So, yeah, I would say have a clear conscience, have a clear mind going into this, because it is, and I'm not spoiling everything. There's so much more that I'm not even talking about that is just like very harsh in terms of how grounded it is in reality. And they took it really seriously too. That's the other part. And that's kind of the reason why, like, I think I talked about this in the first episode, where like post-apocalyptic stories like that oftentimes usually get overlooked because they are depressing. And that's why, like, making Manipulator, I sort of wanted to just, kind of divert from that. But these films, nonetheless, especially Threads, really serve a purpose of the greater whole in the story. And as dreadful as it is, it's still a great film. It's terrifying though. It's very, very fucking scary. At least in my opinion. Because you just don't know. Like you don't know what information comes in and what we can sift through that actually is like, worthy of our attention, and then shit that we completely miss, like just slipped underneath the radar that gets no fucking juice at all. And, at least in this story, in this circumstance, the news was already too late. Despite that, people were already complaining, saying that this probably is going to be a problem, and inevitably it is, and it's already too late. And it's such a crazy fucking film. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that. It's just because it's so frustrating seeing the politics behind it, and know that like there's so many moments in so many ways that all this can be prevented, or at least like prepared for. I mean, I don't know how you can prepare for an atomic fucking bomb, but like at least there's got to be some sort of like awareness, right? Seeing how fucking horrifying nuclear, like anything nuclear is, like in terms of like using it for horrible shit and atom bombs and all that, is just fucking horrific. Like it's terrifying. It's like insta kill, it is just. And if it's not insta kill, it's literally the almost like disintegration of human beings, like in the aftermath of all that, who were anywhere around the circumference of that horrible fucking cloud, the mushroom cloud. Anyways, great movie. I definitely recommend. Not for the faint of heart, for sure. And by the good old folks at the BBC who made this film, which is fucking crazy. It is a metal ass film. I can't even imagine somebody like fucking PBS funding a movie like that. That is fucking horrific. I don't think the same network who made, fucking Sesame Street would ever want to do shit like that. But that would have been crazy. Yeah, and so that has been Threads. Give it a watch, give it a go. Let me know what you think. And moving on to Biosphere. And we're talking spoilers, y'all. We're talking spoilies. Okay. So I read that, like, there's so many different kinds of like takes on Twitter and Rotten Tomatoes, and currently this movie is sitting at a 81%. Now, let me introduce Biosphere to you. Okay. It is written by hold on, let me get the actual. Okay, it's written by Mark Duplass and Mel Eslin, who Mark Duplass, part of the Duplass brothers, made the Puffy Chair, and Mark was in I think The League for a little while, and he made like so many other like amazing films. The one I love is such a crazy fucking movie. And he also made a show called Room 104. Banger of a show. There's some episodes that are just Jesus Christ, but it's such a great show. It's an anthology. It's a same hotel room, different story each time. Super rad, super cool, Biosphere, though. This is one of the films that he wrote alongside Mel, and she, I think, like, she has directed a few things before, including Room 104. She was a writer on Hoarders too, which is very, very fascinating. But yeah, Biosphere, y'all. Holy shit, what an amazing fucking movie. It is so goddamn good. It has Sterling K. Brown, who is like just one of the fucking classiest, most crazy thespians I think my generation has ever seen. He's such a great actor. And Mark Duplass is also great, you know. He's okay. No, I'm kidding. He's great. I enjoy his shit quite a bit, and his acting's phenomenal. And this movie proves that so. So before I got into this film, I was reading it everywhere, and it was just like up and down. It was like, oh, it's the greatest film you haven't seen. It is, a film that takes like a weird turn. It's very confusing, and there's some reviews I was like, oh, it felt like it was too expository in dialogue that doesn't have anything to do with like the characters or the plot or any of that shit, which is like, okay, so let me just get into the story, all right? So the movie begins, Biosphere. The movie begins with, it was a theory about how Mario always needs a Luigi. Like, you can't have a Mario without a Luigi. You always need somebody to run the background. You need somebody to make the secret sauce, as they quoted it, and they needed, to work together. Essentially, they always need to be working together, no matter what. So remember this bit, okay? Remember this. So we then finally realize that these are the last two remaining people on the planet, and Mark Duplass's character Billy is or was a president of the United States before, I guess, the world just turned to shit, right? Do we know what happened to the world? Not really, other than that, like, the atmosphere or like the sky basically closed and it's just like nothing but darkness outside of the literal biodome or biosphere that they are in. And they have this like crazy little habitat where, they have their like indoor grown vegetables, and they have like fish and stuff, and things are getting, of course, scarce because you're growing shit inside. There's a lot of things happening and whatnot, and the fish in particular, the last female dies. The last female fish dies, and Sterling K. Brown plays a scientist named Ray, and he was the one who was able to breed all these fish to, essentially like roam around in this little pond that they got. And just a side note, I don't know if it's a call out to, I don't know, to like to anybody who is a vegetarian or any vegans or anything like that. It definitely, like, at first I thought it was going to be like a PETA commercial where it was just going to be like, oh yeah, we're destroying fish left and fucking right. And but obviously it wasn't that. And I was pleasantly surprised because not that I despise that kind of message. I think it's fine, but like in a story like this, I feel like it can get quickly convoluted, I think. So they remain like just according to the story. So the fish dies, right? The female fish. And then after a whole day of just worrying about what is going to happen next, a miracle well, I guess not a miracle, but something inexplicable happens. Which is one of the fish becomes a hermaphrodite and basically switches sex to adapt to the environment that they are in. And the reason so this is where a few of these critics And a few of these people, I'm feeling probably have like kind of like cocked their heads and go, okay, where is this going to go? And it was pretty clear, at least to me, the moment that happens, right? Because the moment after that happened, well, first before the main reveal happens, they tell a story about they keep alluding to this story about Sterling K. Brown's character and his 8th birthday party, I think. And he had a clown, I guess, or just a magician, just a regular magician, draw him. So like they had a magic trick laid out, and like there's like a giant white notepad, with a bunch of sheets of white paper, and the clown asks, or the magician asks, like, Ray, what would you like, what would you like for your birthday? And he said, I want a bowling ball. So the magician draws a bowling ball on the giant notepad, and he flips it upside down, and out comes a bowling ball. It's just like there's a thud. But that is basically a plot device for what the main reveal is. I think, in a way. It's like, at least it drives the plot. And it gets to the point in the matter of the story, right? And the matter of the story is that somehow Billy, who was the ex-president, right? Or, before the country essentially just ceased to exist, he becomes a hermaphrodite as well. His sex just turns, right? It just fucking just like overnight. It's just he just, well, not overnight, but like gradually he just becomes a woman. The sex organs change, his body changes, everything changes. And the funniest part about it was something in the back of my brain that I was like, they're not going to do that. I feel like that's a little too, like, where the fuck do you go with this? And they did exactly that. So once the fish happened, I was like, all right, well, clearly they're not gonna do what I think they're gonna do. And they fucking did it. Like, that's the hilarious part about all of this, is like, this is supposed to be like an end of the world story. And wow, I didn't even think about, like, we're talking about 2 end of the world stories. And this one, actually, ironic enough, feels a little hopeful. And I will explain. Because throughout the movie, Billy is just very much against that idea, like, of the changes that he is going through. And then as time progresses, he starts to become more and more understanding as he understands the fish more. And I guess before then, he didn't really pay much attention, other than like know their names and how they do and whatnot, what they play. And this struck Billy in a way that he never thought possible. And that is, sometimes things that are inexplicable just happen. And that's the magic, right? That's the whole, like, you can't explain why the bowling ball fell out of the notepad as much as you can't really explain why Billy shifted into another gender. And that's basically what the film speaks about. And by the time you get to the third act, it becomes, because things happen, and like, there's a crack in the biosphere, and everything just feels like, things are not making any sense. Basically, we have these 2 characters who are going through all of this shit in the climax of the film, where something happens with the biosphere. It's beginning to crack. It's beginning to fall apart. And things just feel like it's like just coming to a horrible end until Billy then comes forward. And throughout the film, it was sort of like Ray trying to convince Billy that the magic trick did happen, and Billy was just not having it. He was like, I don't think it happened. Like, that's bullshit. Like, how can you explain a giant thing falling out? And Ray is like, I fucking heard it, dude. It happened. And then after a while, Billy then starts to understand, like, I guess think, or maybe it's Stockholm syndrome, I don't know, but starts to basically say, you know what? I'm not saying that I was there, but I did hear something. Basically confirming that no, yeah, Ray definitely saw something that was inexplicable, or at least to a normal person. Well, he's a scientist, but somebody who doesn't understand magic. And that's the magic of why Billy has become the way he's become, because hope comes in so many unexpected ways that you just can never explain. Because the B story of that film was there's this green light that was outside of the biosphere. And one day when the climax happened, that green light then became like this sort of like cascade of like green saturation that kind of, like beautifully like glosses over the biosphere. And I can't remember if it was Billy or Ray that said that the atmosphere, I think it was Billy, that said that the atmosphere is cracking. So that means like there's light coming through, there's shit coming through, and maybe there is something at the end of all this, right? This glimmer of hope that was just there that they kept looking at, both of them kept looking at throughout the movie, and I guess throughout this time, only to discover that that entire light was the hope that they needed all along. That was something that was necessary for the element of their survival, as much as it was necessary for Billy to become a woman and carry a child, which, yes, they did have sex in the movie, which, yes, it was very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And then afterwards, it was just like, okay, I guess they just sort of like, they're just a couple of buddies who fell in love. I get, yeah, some of those points, of course, they're silly, right? Because it's supposed to be a comedy, but the message behind it is so fucking beautiful. It is such a crazy good movie that I don't understand why people are just like, well, this is just this is just a ridiculous movie, and like the premise is absolutely absurd, and it's just like, yeah, it's a comedy, dum. That's the whole fucking point, That's why it's surprising. It's super fucking original. Like one that was like, there's more shtick than speculation baked into the dialogue, which makes it too easy to dismiss this unfortunately stagey misfire. This was from RogerEbert.com, and that is bullshit. That is bullshit. Nothing against this person. Peace and love to this person, but that is a horrible review. That is just a nonsense of a review. I don't understand what shtick he's talking about. And in that same article, mind you, right? There was something. Billy's also spontaneously undergoing intersex changes, which freaks out and intrigues Ray, formerly a biologist. Somehow, these key plot developments aren't the most unbelievable parts of Biosphere. Okay, so that wasn't the bad part. There's something else here. Hold on. It was just something that was so brain dead that I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh, yeah. Hold on. The movie's comedic climax is both the worst and best scene. Another essential spoiler, right? Because, you already know this. Ray and Billy attempt to get to know each other a little more intimately, but only wind up weirding each other out even more. This routine is mostly funny thanks to Brown and Duplass's frenzied slapstick chemistry, which they have insane chemistry. Like you totally buy it, even in the first 5 minutes of the film, that they are just best friends. Unfortunately, this scene also drags on for so long, with little to no comedic inflection or development, that it eventually feels like the best and only joke the filmmakers could think to tell. Maybe it plays differently if you cover your ears, which is insane. That is a crazy thing to say. It's like every single bit of that wasn't supposed to be funny, although the idea of it is hilarious. But I don't think that was the whole point of it all. It was just like, oh, we just want to make something ridiculous for a man to get pregnant and then, just see what happens. It's like there's way more to that than this guy is just like kind of like brushing to the side. Because there's a whole other thing, that whole arc of why magic and hope come together seamlessly in the third act, at least in the climax of it all, that you should believe the unbelievable, right? X-Files, whatever, right? So that's why the movie is so fucking good. That's why I love the fucking movie. I don't understand why people were just not having it with this, which is so fucking strange. And I think it's a great fucking movie, because the whole message behind it is super intriguing. And like the plot of it all, you think that the plot is going to go one way, which I thought it was going to go like, oh, you keep killing the fish, this is horrible. And in fact, like they did the opposite and almost made fun of it in a way, by way of like how the climax ended up with like dumping the entire fish onto the floor to fix that hole in the biodome or the biosphere. And, just kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way of just saying, just like, yeah, there's no hope for the fish, as much as now it seems like there's no hope for them. Although by the end of it, again, spoilers if you have, again, I don't know why you're listening to it if you're worried about all this far, but in the last 5 minutes of the film, which I can understand, like some people are like, what? But like, this is the way I saw it, right? So the end of the movie basically gets to a point where all hope is lost, and Mark Duplass's character, Billy, comes forward with a notepad, a giant notepad, blank notepad, and explains the magic trick to him. Well, not explain it, but show it to him. Show that not only I'm revealing this magic trick to you, but because we are a partnership, I want to show you the secret sauce. I want to be the Luigi to your Mario, and then vice versa, right? Because even Sterling K. Brown's character, Ray, has helped out Billy's character through so much in trying to understand what these changes are and what's happening and whatnot, which the emotions like kind of cross each other, like, throughout the film. And they both reassure each other that not only they got each other's backs, but that they know each other so well that sometimes you need to give up your own sort of pre-existing ego in order to, like, let your best friend just sort of just like get the wind. But it does that, but with brutal honesty. You know what I mean? Like it's so hard to explain, but because I'm fresh from it and I'm still trying to think about it, but I knew I had to record this. So basically like they have this relationship, and they know that even if they butt heads, they can understand each other by way of just like, you know, knowing that like they don't hold each other to that sort of accountability without like going like, all right, you're my friend. I'm not going to do this. You know, I'm not going to try to disprove everything that you believe in, right? And they help each other out through that process. They help each other out. It was a real testament to what a partnership looks like. And I guess like I didn't think about it till now. I guess it's sort of like a way of showing like how partners, I don't want to say should exist, because like the way that they portrayed intimacy is definitely not how you should portray it with your partner. But the idea that like sometimes it's sort of like the Chris Rock joke. Sometimes you just got to play the tambourine, in order for your partner to just get that limelight for a bit, get that guitar solo, get that, sick drum solo, whatever it is, to make that person look good or make that person look, special. You sort of have to just play the tambourine. Sometimes you're just going to have to explain the magic or not explain the magic at all. And just know that you can't lose hope on something that is one part a miracle, but another part just something that is like a gift to humanity, a gift to humanity that just is inexplicable. That is unexpected, right? Because there's just two men who are in a biosphere, and these are the last surviving people on Earth, at least as far as they know, right? And they don't explain anything else outside of the biosphere other than their own relationship, which is fine. It was absolutely fine. I was curious, but like at the same time, it's an isolation film. So it's like, it's in the vein of Phone Booth or Ivan Locke or any of those films or Panic Room, great movie, that is so sequestered to one specific area, or general area, I should say. Cloverfield Lane is sort of in the same vein of that too, in the sense that like instead of just portraying like, oh, this is one man's insanity going away because they're just stuck in this one spot. And it's actually the opposite of this. They do have an existential crisis at a few points with the fish and, the sex change and all that. Well, not the sex, but like, the hermaphroditism, the evolution, I guess, as Ray put it. So, yeah, I just I thought the overall message of the film was super fucking awesome and super rad. And great thing to point out too, the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes: Biosphere's rambling, unfinished feel doesn't always serve its thoughtful themes, but it's often offset by the engaging interplay between the movie's well-matched leads. So you're basically saying, yeah, the leads are cool, but the story, yawn. It's like, are you fucking, yeah, it's not finished. It doesn't feel complete at all. Like, what? Rambling? There was nothing to be read. Every single line in that film, ladies and gentlemen, was essential. There was not an ounce of fat to be trimmed from that movie. And let me tell you something. An hour and 50 minutes, below 2 hours. You got to hand it to him. Bravo. Fucking bravo. Thank you. Get me in, get me out. We're done. Less than 2 hours, we're good. So I appreciate it just by that alone. You know what I mean? So the consensus is stupid. I do think that, like, I do think the leads are fucking awesome. And I know they're gonna, I mean, there's not gonna be any awards for this, but they should get every single fucking award. But it's a great fucking movie. I don't know what else to say other than that. And I highly, highly recommend it. It's so fucking good. It's so rad. I enjoy it quite a bit. And I hope you guys do too. Let me know what you think. And I think that's about it for me. I'm running out of steam, and it's 4:30 in the fucking morning. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. So we've been going on for 45 minutes. I think we're good. I think I'm set. I said what I needed to say. I need to get it out. I hope it was coherent enough, given that it's so goddamn late. I just want to show how much I love this fucking movie. From what became like a curiosity thing of like just these weird mixed reviews that come left and fucking right, to after I watched the movie, and it's fucking amazing. Please, anybody who watched this, let me know. Let me know. Tell me everything. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you thought about this film. And tell me how you think about Threads. If you think if you agree, if it's the scariest movie of all time. So it's been that, ladies and gentlemen. I got no more show for you. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for hanging out. I love ya. Mwah.